Leonard Hayes was not the kind of billionaire the world usually imagined. He didn't flaunt flashy cars, private yachts, or expensive suits tailored in Europe. He lived quietly, almost invisibly among high society, and wore the same charcoal gray suit so often that people joked it must have been glued to him. But Leonard didn't mind. He had built his entire empire from nothing, brick by brick, failure by failure, lesson by lesson. Where others inherited wealth, he had earned his. So naturally, he never believed wealth defined a person. Character did. But over the years, Leonard had grown tired. The world around him felt louder, greedier, and colder. He often found himself surrounded by people who smiled only when they needed something. Employees who praised him only during bonus season. Business partners who shook hands only when cameras were pointing. And even relatives who only remembered him during holidays. No one seemed real anymore. In this world of masks, Leonard valued one person most. Maria, his maid. Maria had worked in his mansion for nearly 10 years. She was quiet, gentle, and carried herself with the kind of grace that didn't need fine clothing or expensive jewelry. She wore plain cotton dresses, tied her hair in a loose bun, and always kept her eyes lowered when speaking. Yet she had a kindness that seemed to glow from within. When she dusted the bookshelves, she would hum old songs softly. When the flowers in the courtyard wilted, she would talk to them as if encouraging them to bloom again. And whenever Leonard returned home tired, stressed or frustrated from the world, Maria's simple "Sir, welcome home," always felt like a warm blanket over a weary soul. But recently, 3 new women had entered his life, or rather forced their way in. Vanessa, a glamorous socialite who claimed to care deeply about Leonard because she understood the pressures of wealth. Lila, a stunning influencer whose beauty turned heads wherever she went, though her compliments to Leonard always felt rehearsed. Camilla, the charming and elegant daughter of a wealthy family who spoke to Leonard as if she was already his wife. None of them loved him. He knew that. They loved what he represented, and so one evening, sitting in the quiet glow of his study, Leonard thought, if character is all that matters, then let me see theirs. The next morning, he called the 3 women to meet him at the most luxurious shopping mall in the city, the kind where marble floors reflected ceiling chandeliers, and every store smelled like perfume imported straight from Paris. Maria accompanied him, not as part of the test ring, but because she always accompanied him. She was his shadow, though no one ever noticed her. The 3 women arrived dressed in their finest. Vanessa wore a sparkling gold dress that screamed confidence. Lila was draped in designer labels from head to toe. Camilla carried an energy of entitlement as if the mall already belonged to her. Maria stood beside them in her simple faded dress and flat shoes, a stark contrast that made the others look her up and down with thinly veiled disgust. Leonard didn't address their reactions. He simply reached into his pocket, pulled out his black metal credit card, and placed it on the table in front of them. Their eyes widened. Every woman knew that card, unlimited. No spending limit, no restrictions, only the world at their fingertips. Leonard leaned back, observing each face carefully. Today, he said softly, I want you all to buy whatever you truly desire. The air shifted. Vanessa's smile sharpened. Lila's eyes glittered with hunger. Camilla's posture straightened, ready to win. Maria looked confused. Sir, she whispered gently, I don't need anything. Leonard's heart tightened. That was the response he wanted to hear, but the test needed to unfold. No, Maria, he said kindly. I insist. Buy something you want for yourself. Her eyes lowered again, her hands folding politely in front of her. She nodded once softly, and then he handed the credit card to all 4 women. Go, he said, and meet me back here in 2 hours. The 3 elegant women rushed forward, practically dragging each other toward the luxury boutiques. Their heels clicked aggressively across the marble floor, leaving behind a trail of perfume and competitiveness. Maria stood still for a moment, her hands lightly touching the credit card, as if its weight carried more meaning than money could ever symbolize. She didn't run. She didn't rush. She simply walked, quietly, thoughtfully, toward the lower floor where the grocery and household market was located. Leonard watched her from a distance. Something in his chest stirred, part admiration, part sadness. He already knew. Maria had always been the one person who never took more than she needed, not even when no one was watching. Meanwhile, upstairs, Vanessa, Lila, and Camilla were swarming boutiques like predators released into a feast. They tried on diamond necklaces, designer handbags, limited edition perfumes, gold bracelets, and silk gowns. They laughed loudly, posed dramatically, and filled shopping bags like the world owed them luxury. And every swipe of the card echoed in Leonard's heart, not as anger, but as confirmation. 2 hours later, they all returned to the meeting point. Vanessa's arms were overflowing with branded bags. Lila had so many shopping boxes that a store assistant had to help her carry them. Camilla had purchased jewelry worth more than some people earned in a year. But Maria, she carried 2 small bags. In one, laundry soap, bread, rice, milk, and fresh vegetables. In the other, a simple wool shawl, warm, soft, and stitched with hand-woven patterns. Leonard looked at her gently. "For yourself?" he asked. Maria nodded, eyes still lowered. "For winter," she whispered. "My old one is torn, and I bought ingredients to make your favorite soup tonight." Leonard felt his heart break. Quietly, painfully, beautifully. She didn't use the card for herself. She used it to care for him, and right there, standing in the heart of a mall glittering with excess, Leonard Hayes realized the richest heart in his world belonged to the woman everyone overlooked. 2 hours had passed in the vast, glittering mall, yet Leonard Hayes remained seated discreetly in the corner of the cafe overlooking the main atrium. His gaze shifted constantly between the escalators and the boutique entrances, though he already knew the answer he would see. Still, he allowed himself this private observation, part anticipation, part relief. Upstairs, Vanessa, Lila, and Camilla had gone on a spending spree that seemed endless. Each swipe of the black credit card amplified Leonard's quiet assessment of their characters. Vanessa had grabbed a limited edition designer bag, then spotted a gold bracelet she simply had to have. Lila's eyes sparkled with ambition as she selected shoes that cost more than a week's salary for most people. Camilla lingered in the jewelry section, carefully choosing items that would make her appear more elegant, more desirable, more entitled. Their laughter rang through the hallways, echoing past marble columns and glass railings, revealing not joy but greed and a desperate need for approval. Meanwhile, Maria, the humble maid, moved slowly down the escalator. Her simple cotton dress and flat shoes contrasted sharply with the glittering lights of the mall. She walked with deliberate calmness, carrying the black credit card as if it were a precious token of trust, not a tool to fuel extravagance. As she entered the grocery and household section, she was greeted by the faint smell of fresh bread, ripe vegetables, and the earthy aroma of fruits. Children scampered past her, curious about the quiet lady in faded clothing, and she smiled softly, a gentle nod of acknowledgement. Maria's eyes wandered across the shelves. She carefully selected items with precision and purpose: rice, lentils, bread, milk, fresh vegetables, and a small shawl made of warm wool. Nothing flashy, nothing extravagant. Each item was chosen thoughtfully, not for show but for necessity. And as she carried the items to the checkout, she paused to pick up a small chocolate bar, a quiet gift for Leonard, not for herself. Leonard watched from the cafe, a tight knot forming in his chest. This was the moment that mattered. While the others had shown greed, vanity, and entitlement, Maria had revealed something far rarer: character, humility, and selflessness. Every detail, the way she handled the credit card, the careful selection of necessities, the thought for Leonard's comfort, spoke volumes without a single word spoken aloud. It was a quiet, profound testament to her integrity. As the 3 women returned, laden with shopping bags overflowing with designer goods, Leonard noticed their expressions. They were proud, triumphant, and slightly breathless from the excitement of acquisition. Vanessa flaunted her gold bag, Lila clutched a pair of exquisite shoes, and Camilla draped herself in scarves and jewelry, expecting admiration from Leonard. But when their eyes met his, there was no praise, only a quiet, almost mournful gaze. Leonard didn't need to speak. The disappointment in his eyes conveyed the judgment they had been seeking from him all along. And then Maria appeared. Her 2 small bags were nothing compared to the towers of luxury goods the others carried. But Leonard's heart stirred in a way it hadn't for years. Her modest choices, made out of necessity and thoughtfulness rather than greed, radiated authenticity. She approached him quietly, placing the bags gently at his feet. "Sir?" she said softly, her voice humble but steady. "I chose what I needed, and a few things for you. I hope you like them." Leonard felt an unexpected lump in his throat. It was not the wealth of Maria that moved him. It was the richness of her heart. He rose slowly from his chair, walking over to her. "Maria," he said, his voice quiet, "you never cease to amaze me." The three glamorous women watched in disbelief. Their smiles faltered. They had expected admiration, envy, or awe directed at them. Instead, all attention, all respect, and all emotional weight were focused on the modest maid who had chosen humility over opulence. Leonard motioned for Maria to follow him to a quiet corner of the mall. "Look around," he said softly, "and tell me honestly, who do you think made the better choice?" Maria lowered her eyes, a faint blush on her cheeks. I don't know what to say, sir. I just took what I needed and what I thought would help you." Leonard nodded. "That," he said, "is the answer. True character isn't measured by what you can buy or how much you display. It's measured by intention, by thoughtfulness, by the choices you make when no one is watching." The other three women shuffled nervously, realizing the depth of the lesson Leonard had orchestrated. Their purchases, meant to impress and dominate, suddenly seemed hollow and meaningless. Leonard's eyes met each of theirs in turn. Money tests nothing. Character, everything. Maria, despite her humility, felt a warmth in her chest. She had never expected recognition or reward. She had simply acted according to what she believed was right. Leonard, however, couldn't hide his emotions. He had been surrounded by sycophants, opportunists, and pretenders for years, but Maria's integrity reminded him why he valued human connection above all else. He placed his hand lightly on hers. "You are the richest person here," he whispered. "Not because of wealth, but because of your heart." Maria's eyes widened slightly and she looked away modestly. The bustling mall seemed to fade into the background as Leonard's words sank in. The test was over and the lesson was clear. The mall was buzzing with life, shoppers wandering from boutique to boutique, laughing, haggling, and chatting. But for Leonard Hayes, the world had narrowed to one quiet, profound moment. The three glamorous women, still holding their bags of extravagance, had just returned from their spree. Their expressions, once proud and triumphant, now carried a subtle unease. They had expected Leonard to be impressed, to reward their lavishness with admiration or at least a nod of approval. But instead his eyes were focused elsewhere, on Maria. Maria approached quietly, holding her modest bags. Her steps were gentle, careful, and deliberate, every movement a reflection of her character. She had purchased nothing extravagant, nothing flashy, and yet every item was chosen with care and thoughtfulness. Rice, bread, milk, fresh vegetables, and a simple wool shawl for herself, with a small chocolate bar for Leonard. Her actions were the very embodiment of selflessness, humility, and integrity. Leonard felt a lump rise in his throat, emotions too strong to contain. He rose from his seat and walked toward her, his gaze soft and full of pride. The three women could not hide their astonishment. Vanessa's jaw tightened, Lila's eyes widened, and Camilla's composure faltered. They had never expected this. None of them had considered that character could outweigh wealth, that thoughtfulness could outshine extravagance. Leonard's quiet approval of Maria, his admiration, and the emotional weight of his gaze left them speechless. Leonard took Maria's hand lightly, guiding her to a secluded corner of the cafe. "Look at them," he said softly, nodding toward the three women. "Do you understand why I wanted to test them?" Maria looked down, her eyes humble yet attentive. I think I do, sir. It isn't about the card or the money. It's about how we choose to use it." Leonard smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and heartbreak crossing his face. "Exactly. Wealth reveals many things, but it does not define you. Actions, intentions, and the thoughtfulness of your heart. That is true value." The three women approached hesitantly, curiosity mixed with unease. "Sir?" Vanessa began, her voice shaking slightly. "We thought we knew what you wanted." "We wanted to impress you." Leonard cut her off gently. "Vanessa, Lila, Camilla."
"You missed the point."
"This test was never about impressing me or spending money. It was about showing who you truly are when given freedom." His gaze swept over their expressions. Noticing for the first time a flicker of humility, regret, and understanding, Maria stood quietly beside him, her modesty accentuated by the contrast of the glamorous women and their overflowing bags. She looked up at Leonard briefly, her eyes soft and sincere. "I didn't try to impress anyone," she said simply. "I just wanted to do what was right." Leonard's chest tightened. "And that," he whispered, "is why you are the richest person here." The mall seemed to fade around them. The laughter, the chatter, the clinking of handbags and credit cards, all of it became background noise to the powerful realization that had settled over the group. The three women, for the first time, truly understood the lesson. Their wealth, status, and beauty had earned them admiration from society, but they had never earned the respect of someone who valued integrity and character above all else. Vanessa's lips trembled. I didn't realize," she murmured. Lila nodded, her eyes lowered. Camilla, usually composed and confident, felt an unfamiliar heaviness in her chest. Leonard spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "It is never too late to learn. Today, you have seen that true richness lies not in what you possess, but in how you act, in the thoughtfulness of your choices, and in the care you show others." Maria placed the small chocolate bar gently in Leonard's hand. "For you, sir," she said softly. Leonard's heart ached. He had expected to feel pride, but what he felt was far deeper. A mixture of admiration, gratitude, and an overwhelming sense of connection. She had chosen thoughtfulness over greed, humility over vanity, and in doing so, she had revealed the truth that money could never teach, the value of a pure heart. The three women looked on, their expressions a mixture of awe, guilt, and newfound understanding. Leonard allowed them a moment to absorb the lesson, then addressed them one final time. "Let today remind you, appearances can deceive, luxury can blind, but character never lies. It is visible not in wealth but in the choices you make when no one is watching." The lesson hung in the air like a tangible weight, pressing down on everyone present. Maria, modest as ever, simply nodded, her heart calm and serene, having never sought recognition but fully embodying it. The aftermath of the test lingered in the mall long after the shopping bags were put aside. Leonard Hayes stood quietly beside Maria, observing the reactions of Vanessa, Lila, and Camilla. Their expressions had transformed from smug confidence to a mixture of shock, humility, and disbelief. The mall's busy crowd moved around them, oblivious to the subtle, profound lesson unfolding near the cafe. Leonard didn't need to speak immediately. The silence carried weight. The lesson had already begun to take root in the minds of the three women, and even in the few onlookers who had noticed the scene, curiosity sparked quietly. Maria, still holding her modest bag, seemed unfazed by the attention. She had never sought recognition, fame, or reward. Her calm composure, her modesty, and the selflessness in her choices radiated quietly, almost imperceptibly but with undeniable impact. Leonard glanced at her, a faint, proud smile tugging at his lips. He had watched many people in his life, observed countless attempts at gaining wealth, influence, and admiration, yet none had moved him as deeply as Maria had in those few hours. He thought about the countless moments she had worked quietly, faithfully and honestly in his home, never asking for anything in return, and realized how much he had taken her for granted. Vanessa, still clutching her designer bags, finally found her voice. I didn't understand," she admitted, her tone a mix of embarrassment and genuine realization. "I thought buying everything I wanted would make you respect me." Leonard looked at her with gentle, unwavering eyes. "Vanessa, respect is never bought. It is earned through integrity, empathy, and the choices you make, not the wealth you display." Lila lowered her gaze, her fingers nervously fiddling with a scarf she had purchased. I thought it would make me stand out," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Camilla, whose posture had always been so confident and poised, now slumped slightly, the realization settling heavily upon her shoulders. We were wrong," she said softly, barely meeting Leonard's gaze. Leonard nodded, understanding their confusion and regret. "It is never too late to learn. Today, you have witnessed a truth that money cannot teach. Character, kindness, humility, these are priceless. You have the chance to change, to be better, and to understand that true richness lies in what you give, not what you take." Maria, sensing the weight of the moment, gently placed the chocolate bar she had bought for Leonard in his hand. Her modest gesture, simple as it was, spoke volumes. Leonard's eyes glistened with emotion. This small act, chosen out of care and thoughtfulness, represented everything he had been searching for in the people around him. The three women, seeing this, realized just how hollow their own extravagant purchases were in comparison. All their wealth, all their beauty, all their efforts to impress had paled in comparison to a simple act of kindness. Leonard turned toward them, his voice soft but commanding. Remember this moment. Remember that appearances can deceive. Luxury can impress, but humility and thoughtfulness reveal the true nature of a person. Learn from it. Carry it with you and never forget what you have seen today. Vanessa, Lila, and Camilla nodded solemnly, absorbing each word with a mixture of shame and enlightenment. They had been given a rare glimpse into the kind of integrity that many spent their lives seeking, but rarely found. As the mall slowly returned to its normal rhythm, Leonard and Maria stepped outside into the warm afternoon sunlight. The noise of traffic, the distant chatter of pedestrians, and the hum of the city seemed softer somehow, almost as if the world had been momentarily transformed by the weight of what had occurred inside. Leonard glanced at Maria and smiled gently. "You have always been the richest person I know," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of admiration and quiet gratitude. Maria simply smiled back, her humility intact, her heart steady. "I only did what felt right," she replied softly. The lesson of the day did not remain confined to Leonard or the three women. Other shoppers, employees, and even store clerks who had observed the scene began to reflect on the quiet power of integrity and kindness. Word spread quickly through whispers, subtle conversations, and soon social media posts. The story of the billionaire testing the women and the maid who had chosen thoughtfulness over extravagance became a symbol of moral clarity, humility, and the true meaning of wealth. Leonard knew that his actions had a ripple effect far beyond the mall. It was not enough to surround himself with people of superficial charm and fleeting admiration. He needed those whose hearts were as steady and pure as their intentions. Maria represented that unwavering moral compass. She reminded him that wealth and power were meaningless if not paired with character, empathy, and a sense of responsibility toward others. By the end of the day, Leonard returned home with Maria, carrying a renewed sense of appreciation for the quiet, humble people who truly made the world a better place. Vanessa, Lila, and Camilla left the mall carrying expensive bags, but each with a heavy weight in their hearts. They had been confronted with a truth they could not ignore. Wealth is only a measure of material success. It cannot define the value of a person's character. Leonard's home was calm, serene, and welcoming. Maria moved with her usual grace, unpacking the groceries and arranging the small gifts thoughtfully. The wool shawl she had purchased was folded neatly on a chair, and the chocolate bar was placed carefully on the countertop. Leonard watched her, deeply moved. It was not the grand gestures, the wealth, or the luxury that mattered. It was this quiet, consistent integrity, visible in every small choice she made. That evening, as the city lights shimmered outside the large windows of Leonard's penthouse, he reflected on the day's events. The world often prioritized the wrong measures of success. It praised beauty, applauded extravagance, and rewarded greed. Yet in the quiet moments, in the small acts of thoughtfulness, in the choices made without expectation of reward, true greatness was revealed. Maria had shown him that character could not be bought, only demonstrated. And in her, he had witnessed the richest soul he had ever known. The following morning, Leonard Hayes woke early as the first light of dawn crept through the towering windows of his penthouse. The city below was slowly stirring to life, its relentless energy contrasting with the serene calm of his home. Leonard, however, felt a profound sense of peace, a calm that had been missing from his life for years. The events of the previous day played over in his mind. The test, the reactions of the three women, and most importantly, Maria's quiet, unwavering integrity. In a world obsessed with wealth, power, and appearances, Maria had reminded him of something crucial. True value was not measured in dollars, designer labels, or social standing. It was measured in character, thoughtfulness, and selflessness. Maria moved gracefully around the kitchen, unpacking the small groceries she had bought. The rice, bread, fresh vegetables, and milk were carefully arranged, as if each item carried a purpose beyond its ordinary use. The wool shawl was folded neatly on a chair, A simple gift for herself, yet a symbol of her modesty and dignity. She hummed softly, the melody floating through the penthouse like a gentle reminder of life's quiet beauty. Leonard watched her from across the room, a swell of admiration and gratitude rising in his chest. He realized that in all his years of wealth and experience, he had never truly understood the value of humility until now. Outside, the city was alive, unaware of the lesson unfolding within the walls of the penthouse. But Leonard knew that the lesson had already left its mark on the three women who had participated in his test. Vanessa, Lila, and Camilla had returned home, their expensive shopping bags now feeling heavy and meaningless. For the first time, they had experienced genuine humility, a confrontation with a truth they could not ignore. They had learned that wealth could buy comfort and admiration, but it could never buy respect, trust, or genuine affection. The realization weighed on them heavily, leaving them with an uncomfortable but necessary clarity about their own lives and values. Leonard called Maria over, his voice soft but warm. "Maria," he said, "thank you. For everything. Not for what you bought, not for the way you followed my instructions, but for being who you are. Your heart has reminded me of the world I want to live in." Maria's eyes lowered, her hands folded politely in front of her. "I only did what felt right, sir," she replied, her voice calm and sincere. Leonard smiled, feeling a rare and profound sense of connection. "And that," he said, "is why you are richer than anyone else I know." Word of the event had begun to circulate quietly among Leonard's close associates and a few onlookers from the mall. The story of the billionaire's test, the extravagant women and the humble maid had captured imaginations. It became more than just a tale of shopping. It was a parable about character, integrity, and the unseen value of humility. Leonard realized that in a world dominated by superficial measures of success, this story could serve as a powerful reminder to many. Wealth is not the measure of a person, but their choices, empathy, and thoughtfulness define their true worth. Later that day, Leonard decided to host a small gathering at his penthouse, inviting a few trusted friends and advisors. The purpose was not celebration but reflection. As the guests arrived, Leonard recounted the events, carefully emphasizing the lesson rather than the drama. "Observe the world," he said, "but never forget to observe the hearts of those around you. Wealth can open doors, but it cannot open hearts. Only integrity can do that." Maria served tea and light refreshments, her movements quiet and precise. She did not seek praise or acknowledgement. She simply carried out her role with dignity and grace. The guests watched, some quietly taking note, others clearly moved by the contrast between her humility and the previous day's display of extravagance. Leonard smiled subtly, recognizing that the lesson was spreading, not through lectures, but through example. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, Leonard took a moment to reflect privately with Maria. "Do you understand the impact of what you did?" he asked gently. Maria looked up at him, her eyes calm and unwavering. "I only acted according to my heart, sir," she said. Leonard nodded. "And in doing so, you have reminded everyone here, and in the mall, of something invaluable. True richness comes from the choices we make, not the wealth we possess." Maria smiled softly, a quiet warmth radiating from her. Even the three women who had participated in the test were forced to reconsider their values. Vanessa began volunteering at a local charity, learning to see the world beyond material desires. Lila dedicated her social media influence to causes that promoted education and empathy. Camilla started mentoring younger women, emphasizing the importance of humility, kindness, and thoughtfulness over superficial beauty and wealth. The lessons Leonard had hoped to impart were taking root in unexpected ways, influencing lives beyond what he had imagined. That evening, as the city lights shimmered through the tall windows, Leonard and Maria stood together in the penthouse. The quiet hum of the city below, the gentle rustle of the wool shawl she had purchased, and the faint scent of fresh bread from the kitchen created a serene atmosphere. Leonard reflected on the events of the past day, the test, the reactions, the revelations. It had been a powerful reminder that wealth alone could not define a person, that appearances were often deceiving, and that humility and integrity held far greater value than any designer label or extravagant purchase. He placed his hand lightly on Maria's shoulder. "Today," he said softly, "you have shown me what truly matters. Not wealth, not status, not influence, but the heart, the character, and the choices we make. You have reminded me why I built this life, not for myself, but to surround myself with the right people. Maria's eyes lowered, a faint blush on her cheeks. I only did what was right, sir, she replied quietly. Leonard smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never known. And so, the day ended not with fanfare, applause, or recognition, but with a quiet understanding that true wealth lay in character, thoughtfulness, and integrity. Leonard Hayes knew that his life, surrounded by material riches, had been transformed by the simple, consistent goodness of one humble maid. In a world obsessed with excess and display, Maria had reminded him, and many others, that the richest hearts are often found in the most modest of places.